innovate, and create lasting impact. And today I have my special guest, one of her advocacy, military leadership for business growth, none other than Dr. Mary Kelly.
Daniel, it's so good to be with you and your listeners today.
Likewise, Dr. Mary. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
I grew up in a small business. My father had started some small businesses, and he grew his business to a regional sales representative business and wound up doing very well. But I think it's very risky to start a business in your 50s when you're married and have a bunch of kids. And he did it, and he taught me how to be an entrepreneur. And I started my business after I retired out of the Navy, and I do leadership and economic development for profit growth for other companies now.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Dr. Kelly. And today let's talk about strategic planning for competitive advantage. So, competitive advantage use mean building a moat. Today's moats can be cross, filled in, or order in irrelevant overnight. Is it sustainable competitive advantage still possible, or are we all just renting our market position?
Ooh, so good. So, when we talk about our comparative and competitive advantage, our competitive advantage means that we do something absolutely better than other people. Comparative advantage means we do it at a lower opportunity cost. So, if you can do something that somebody else does, and you can do it at a lower opportunity cost because you have economies of scale, this is all you do, you are great in this area, you've got that comparative as well as competitive advantage. And yes, there's a lot of businesses out there competing with you to do whatever it is you do. But as long as you are very clear on what you do better than everyone else, that is your advantage.
Very well said, Dr. Kelly. And how about you can win by being cheaper, or you can win by being irreplaceable? In the current economic climate, which vector offers the higher ceiling and which offers the shorter lifespan?
So I will share with everyone that I just lost some business to one of my competitors who said the words to the buyer. They said, whatever Mary is charging, I will come in at 25% less. 25% less. That is a very big difference. And the buyer went with him. Now, I thought about it a lot and I said, do I want to go back to my buyer and say, I will give you that discount so that I'm not competing just on price alone? And I didn't. And instead, I said, so you're going to use him for right now. And they said, oh, yes, but in a year, we're going to hire you because we think we can get by with him right now. But in a year, we know we're absolutely going to need you. So I think they're being a little bit short-sighted, but I'm still their choice when it comes time to what it is they specifically need. So I'm okay with losing business for a year, but they're coming back to me, and I know that. I don't want to be in a price war competing with people in a race to the bottom. That's not a good business model. I want to be the person that people say, if I've got this problem, I'm going to call Mary and she's going to help me fix this problem. Mary's going to fix the problem. And that's what I want. I want to be irreplaceable. I want to be top of mind. And when people have a problem, nobody thinks, oh gosh, I've got this really big problem. I want the cheapest solution for the long term. In the short term, they might think, okay, this is cheaper for right now. But in the long term, nobody does. Let me phrase it a different way. Let's say you have a brain tumor. Nobody says, get me the cheapest possible brain surgeon. People say, I want the best brain surgeon. So, my very gentle advice, Daniel, is we all need to try to be the very best at what it is we do. And our clients will come to us.
That's the key ingredient. You will be the best of the best. So let's talk about the customer's definition. We often define advantage by what we do better than competitors, as what you were saying. But if we can ask your most loyal customers why they stay, what would they say that you are not measuring?
It's all the intangibles. I worked with a group this week, and they said the reason we like you and your team is because we know whatever it is, you're going to say yes. You're going to say that's not a problem. We've got this. We know you're going to show up prepared for not just what you do, but all the other things that could happen. Look, the world is an uncertain place. There's a lot of people who should be doing a lot of things, and they're not doing them. So if you're that person and that company with that product or service, and you show up every time and you don't just deliver what the client is expecting, you over deliver, and they know you're always going to be that person who over delivers. You've got the products, you've got the services, everything is going to work the first time. If you say you're going to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're there at 8:30. You know every single time you're going to over deliver. You're going to make sure that the customer's needs are put first. You're going to make sure everything is good for them. See, that's assurance. That's certainty. There's a lot of people out there who are going to be the low cost. They're not going to provide that level of confidence and assuredness and certainty. And that's what you do. And it doesn't matter if you cut hair, if you install HVAC systems, or if you own a clothing store. If people know they can rely on you every time, they will keep coming back.
Certainly, they will come back for sure because you are one of the best. The invisible asset, Dr. Mary. Balance sheets capture physical capital or an intellectual property. What is the most valuable competitive asset you ever seen that can be listed on the balance sheet?
That can or cannot be listed on the
It
balance
can.
sheet.
It cannot be.
Yes, cannot be. Yeah. So and this is a weird thing to say, but it's organization. Is how well do you organize your time and your resources and your people's time and their resources? And by that, I mean, are you planning out your year for success? Have you sat down and mapped out your mission statement? What do we do? What do we deliver? And then have we mapped out our vision statement? Where are we going? What are we going to be doing this year? We are the best women's clothing store in all of Manila. Whatever it is, where are we going? Our mission, what we do, and our vision, where we're going. And then be organized about the goals we have in mind. The balance sheet is going to reflect how much we're selling and at what price. That's great. But we also have to look at the goals we've set for ourselves and our company. Are we developing our leaders of our company so that the company can be successful in the future? Are we taking proactive steps to be good stewards of the community? Are we involved with our local communities, and are we being helpful? And then, do people trust us? See, a balance sheet only captures so much. It's all those other intangibles that I think are important when you run a business, because the business is our legacy. And we want a legacy. We want to be remembered for being that business that was a good community member, a trustworthy partner on a personal level as well as on a business level, that we delivered what we said we're going to do, and we're growing and watching out for our people now and in the future. I think all of those intangibles are really critical to running a successful business.
Legacy indeed. How about the budget trap, Dr. Mary? For most companies, strategic planning is budgeting with a better stationary. How do you know if you're produce a final forecast or an actual strategy?
So, a strategy, a really good strategic plan, includes the basics, but they don't start with the budget. And that's the mistake I see a lot of companies make right now. They say, we're going to take last year's numbers. I just worked with a company last week, and they said, we want to grow. Great. So, they took last year's numbers and basically just increased everything by 20%, and they called that strategic planning. That is not strategic planning. A good strategic planning session starts again with the vision and the mission, and then breaks it down to that SWOT analysis. People always forget about the SWOT analysis: your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and then the threats. But the threats to me is more than just my competition and what they're doing. It's got to be what we call a pestle analysis. A pestle analysis. Pestle stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. I'll say that again. Pestle. Political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. And that those all those things can be a lot of those things you can't control, which means those are external shocks that you have to deal with. You can't change politics. You can't change certain economics. You can't change certain social issues. Some technology you can adopt or not, but the technology is going to exist with or without you. You need to be mindful of any legal changes. And then there might be some kind of environmental issue that you hadn't counted on. Maybe there's a tornado. Maybe there's a tsunami. Maybe there's flooding. Maybe there's snow. You have to be paying attention to all of those other factors. And then you have to look at the economic outlook. And again, most people ignore this as well. What is our nation's GDP growth? How much do we rely on trade? Are tariffs going to affect us? What is my industry trends forecast? What kind of labor force challenges will I have? What kind of AI will I be dealing with? All of those other factors have to be part of your strategic planning session. And you know what, Daniel? A lot of people don't. They just go back to last year's numbers, increase it by 20%, and call it a plan. It's not a plan.
It's not a plan, people. It's not a plan. You need to revise it. So, the graveyard of a good ideas, Dr. Mary. Every organization kill good ideas to make a room for a great ones. What is the best strategic initiative you have ever killed, and why did saying no ultimately save the company?
So there was a company I was working with that had a new product. In To use a company that everybody knows, this was not the company I worked with, but let's just take Coca-Cola.
Okay.
They had a couple bombs where they tried to replace Diet Coke along the way. People love Diet Coke. Why would you take a product that has a core base and a great following and decide to kill it? And meanwhile, the product you want to replace it with, nobody liked. That's what we're talking about. Sometimes where the idea comes from is helpful to know. If the CEO or the founder of the company or the chairman of the board or the president comes up with an idea, look really hard at that idea, because a lot of people will just rubber stamp that and say, "That's a great idea, boss. Let's go with it." As a consultant, that's where I can provide value, because I can go, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't care that that's what the boss had as an idea. It's not a good idea. We need to not let that go forward, or this could ruin this company. And if it doesn't ruin it, at the very least, it's going to mean people are laid off. That division is going to go under. This could be a problem. So I love ideas, but even my own, not all of them are good. I've had some ideas that I thought were brilliant ideas, and it turns out they were not so great. How did we find out they weren't great? I have a board of directors. I sit down with my board of directors and I say, I've got these initiatives, I've got these ideas. What do you think? And my board of directors knows to be honest with me. And frankly, it's a little hurtful when they say, that is not a good idea. You should not do that. And you know what? Then you think, if I'm going to prioritize things and I'm going to hire smart people to give me good advice, it would be dumb if I didn't take that advice. So we can't just rely on one person's idea to carry it through. We've got to stress test it. We've got to focus group it. We've got to discuss it. And then we move forward on the best ideas. We don't base the ideas based on who came up with it. Just because the boss said it's a good idea doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Very well said. Dr. Mary, very well said indeed. Let's talk about the legacy burden. Incumbents have existing revenue streams to protect, right? So startup do not. How do you allocate resources to the future of the business when the present of the business is still profitable?
That's so hard, isn't it? So, what we have to do is we have to make sure we understand the flow of money. And you have to understand what's coming in and what's going out. And that means a budget, and not just a budget for today or this month. You have to budget out 6 to 12 months in the future to make sure that you're carrying that through. There are three things that gets CEOs fired, whether or not they founded the company or not. One is human resources issues, a personnel problem, a lawsuit, a challenge, and if they messed up, that can get them fired. Number two, not understanding industry regulations. That could be taxes, it could be tariffs, it could be a mandatory change in terms of a chemical that you use in your plant. You have to understand the industry regulations. And the third are the finances. There are people in very senior positions who still don't understand their budget sheets. So, for that, I would very gently suggest to our entrepreneurs, especially if you started the company, that you need to sit down with someone you trust and have them explain everything financial to you in excruciating detail. You have to sit there. It's going to be painful. I understand, but you must understand where your money is going, what you're spending money on, what is giving you an ROI, and then you can make the best determinations and the best decisions going forward. I worry a lot about some of my CEOs and presidents and founders who say, oh, I'm just the idea person. I let other people manage the details. Those top three things are things you cannot delegate. You cannot delegate the financial responsibility, the regulatory responsibility, or the HR responsibility. That is all on you.
Certainly. Again, empowering answer, Dr. Mary. Incentive misalignment. You cannot
Hmm.
execute a strategy that your compensation structure does not reward. What is the common strategic objective that is systematically undermined by how we pay people?
We have seen this, especially in the United States in the banking industry. There was a bank, and they were paying incentives based on the numbers of accounts their people were opening. So let's say you have a bank, and if you can get a new bank account opened, that meant a certain amount of money that you got as a bonus. So let's just say for every account you opened, you got an extra $5. Okay, it
Mhm.
sounds like a good idea. Except what would happen is these people would take existing customers, and let's say those existing customers had a checking account and a savings account. Well, what they would do is they would just go into these people's accounts, which is illegal, by the way, and they would open up a secondary checking, a secondary savings, maybe a third checking, a third savings. They would open up accounts for minor children, 2 years old, 5 years old. So one family that maybe before had a checking and a savings account now has 20 different accounts. So the bank employee would get, $5 for every single one of those. So that's like $90 that they would get as a bonus just by opening up all these other accounts. Does that give the bank more money to operate from? No. What does the bank want? The bank needs extra deposits so that they can loan out money and be profitable. All it was doing was increasing the number of accounts without increasing the actual amount of revenue. So we were rewarding people for going around the legal system. They were rewarding people for creating these ridiculous accounts that, frankly, just made work for more other people in the bank. But on paper, it looked like a great incentive. Open up a new account, get $5. No, you have to be very careful about the unintended consequences. Right now, right now, President Trump in the United States told banks that he wanted them to put a cap, a ceiling on the annual percentage rates that were being charged for credit cards. And the idea was that people who had a tough time getting credit were paying more on their credit cards, 15, 18, 20%, than people with better credit. So he had this idea, well, let's just cap that credit, that APR rate at 10%. But see, this is where people don't understand. The unintended consequence of that is that people with credit that's not that good suddenly can't get credit at all. If the bank has to now cap at 10%, anybody with not so good credit is going to wind up losing their credit card, and that's worse for them. So this is where sometimes business owners and founders and leaders create incentives, or they have very well-meaning ideas, but there's unintended consequences to those plans. So you have to think through not just the incentive, but what could happen that would be exactly the opposite of what you intend. And that was certainly the case with these credit cards. It was certainly the case of this bank with opening up all of these ridiculous accounts. Did it make it look better on the balance sheet? Oh, we went from, 10,000 accounts this year to, 70,000 accounts. That looks like a good number, but then when you look at the deposits, the amount hadn't changed at all. So again, you have to look at what you are incentivizing and what you're telling your people. And in the case of this bank, they told their people, do whatever it takes, just make it look good on paper. And that is a terrible way to do business.
So, Dr. Mary, let's talk about the cultures and strategy. Is it a cliche to say culture eats strategy for breakfast? But what specific cultural traits actually function as defensible competitive advantage that cannot be copied?
I do agree that culture can eat strategy. I do agree. Because if you've got the right people in the right place and they all want to do the right thing at the right time to the right person, the right client every time, that is hard to beat. However,
Mhm.
those people also need guidance and direction, and they need strategy. And so if you've got great people, but they're all running in the wrong direction, that's great culture, but it's going in the wrong direction. So we still have to have leadership that steps in and coalesces these people who are all trying to do the right thing and gives them the direction they need to go in. So yes, I love a great culture. I love hiring. I tell people hire for great attitude because a great attitude will carry people through. If you've got a brilliant person, but they have a bad attitude and they do not care about the organization, they can actually be dangerous, even though on paper they're brilliant and they look perfect. I will take somebody with a great attitude over somebody who's a little smarter every time because I can teach a skill set. It's hard to teach a great attitude. So I think culture and attitude are supremely important, but they also need leadership to point them in the right direction.
Very well said, Dr. Mary. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course, my book 101 review in sixth season too, comedy 101 fourth season, and food 101 in sixth season as well, geography 101 love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 are in fifth season, science 101, sex 101 are in fourth season reasons: spiritual awakening 101, trivia 101, law 101, mental health 101, motivation 101, entrepreneurship 101. 101, of course, my Bible verses 101 on my baby podcast. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Dr. Mary, a strategy that dies when the founder leaves was never a strategy. It was a personality. How do you institutionalize strategic thinking so the organization outlasts its architects?
This is where strategic planning also has an element of succession planning. All of us are going to die. All of us are
Yes.
replaceable. We don't
Mhm.
like that, but we're all replaceable. And if we truly care about the organization and the people who work there and the products and services we deliver and our clients, we are going to make sure we have a successor. And that's huge.
Yes, indeed. Let our legacy will be echoed through our generations to come. So, Dr. Mary, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
I have a new book coming out called Leadership is Tough: What Great Leaders Do Differently. And I can be found at productiveleaders.com. That's productiveleaders.com. Lots of free resources there for your business, your leadership, and your entrepreneurial journey.
Yes, I hope Dr. Mary will be my regular guest on Entrepreneurship 101, and let's empower people all over the world through your knowledge and wisdom. Tune in. Dr. Mary will be my guest on Mental Health 101. So, people, let's support Dr. Mary, because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to rise. So, Dr. Mary, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. See you next time.
Welcome, people. See you soon.